EKO can talk a little bit more.
Okay.
And I will pass the microphone to
Pillet, let's have your take in this conversation where you bring your expertise. I know it's in common finance. Just take 2 minutes and let's hear you out.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So basically, I'm also working for BASE, so colleague of Daniel, and myself, I've been very active in African countries, in the Western African countries, and also in Rwanda, where we have been pushing for mitigation projects to achieve great emission reduction. So, as you said, basically the way we see the challenges is that you need to find a way to de-risk the market and to grasp market-based solution if you want to go beyond the life of a project and have a sustainable solution for a certain economy. So we are trying to transform the market in those different economies, Senegal, Ghana, and Rwanda, by bringing in a very high efficiency appliances into the market and working on the incentives. So what to do, basically, you have to come up with a way to make all the financiers very comfortable. So we came up with innovative mechanism to basically de-risk the market and bring them a very simple way to basically offer their products to the end users. So very simple, one example which we think is very innovative is called the on-bill financing, where basically any household, any end user who wants to replace their old refrigerator or AC will be able to basically pay back their credit through their electricity bill. So you and me, I can replace my old appliance, and from day one I will achieve between 40 to 60% of energy savings. And this will be basically seen on your electricity bill, because you're gonna basically save on your electricity consumption. And what we do is basically we use that amount of money that you're saving on your electricity bill to repay the credit. So basically you don't have to pay for the upfront costs, and we find a way to increase the access to finance, because there won't be any need for any requirement for collaterals or strong application process. You just have to apply for the program and then you can access. And one of the very important conditions is actually the waste management, because we really include that aspect into the model. The one condition is that you will basically replace your used equipment and get a new one. And the provider that is working with you will basically have to dispose, collect, and recycle the equipment. And this is within the model. So we find a way to make it sustainable so that it's self-financed. And through that, we can really achieve great emission reduction.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pile. Dr. Itua is an economist, and of course, now talking about models will enable us really achieve our goals in mitigating or reducing emissions in our economy. I'm sure that he will have something to tell us, especially leaving us out of Lagos. He knows what solid waste challenges has been. Of course, he's also interfacing with what transport emissions have been like, especially the motorways, and the past through. So, Dr. Tua, just your opening on this conversation.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity of calling me here, although without a notice. Thank you. I just wanted to quickly add that from what he said earlier, he talked about financing. Undoubtedly, financing is a challenge. How do you mobilize the fund to deal with the various issues coming up? Whether you're looking at it from the mitigation angle or from the adaptation angle, is really a challenge. More so that our economy, from what you've just said and noted, is SME based. We want to say that at least 90% of the organizations you see are SMEs. How can such SMEs mobilize fund? And we're looking at dealing with the challenges of waste management, we're looking at dealing with the challenges of transportation. And you talked about Lagos. Lagos, it is quite chaotic in Lagos when it comes to transport issues, And of course, even waste management issues. Not just only in Lagos, for waste management across the entire nation. Now, how do we address all of these issues in a manner that we also take on emission reduction? I think that is the key issue here. Well, before I go into all of that, I want to quickly say that for Lagos State, we did a 16-month vehicular emission monitoring study supported by the World Bank. And back then, we recognized that Lagos is a hotbed for pollutants. And I do know that the World Bank is going on to do something that has to do with West African coastal region, dealing with such pollutants, monitoring them, and Lagos is one of them. But for the transportation, I'm also aware that the government, in trying to resolve the issue, the waterways have been opened up. In fact, I think the government is trying to, if they've not done it, they're trying to sign on with the private enterprise, some form of PPP that can take on water transportation management. And if we're able to have such, of course, you know the road will be decongested. Before now, you talked about Molwe. Molwe is phased out. The market forces itself checked out Molwe from the roads, so we no longer have Molwes. But before now, you recall that if you have stayed so long in traffic without your glasses wound up, when you get home and you take a white hanky and clean, you will see some black suits. In other words, you were taking your carbon monoxide. But I think that issue is being dealt with now. Now that the models are no longer there, that used to emit all of that. But of course, with the bad roads now in some locations, and the roads are becoming more and more congested, I think it's telling on everyone. But suffice it to say, going back to the funding issue, I know generally that the government is doing something, and I guess the Ministry of Environment will say something in terms of mobilization of funds with green bond instruments. And one of the things my organization is doing is to see how we're able to create awareness in sustainable financing across Africa. We're working with United Nations University on that. And we've done a whole lot of training. So we'll come back to this on what green bond is all about and how all of us can catch into it.
Because they have a high level meeting now, before I let them go, we are meant to also launch a co-cabinet change in this global meeting. So I'll just give them, we'll take a placard and take a picture before they leave, please. Let's just, where is that? I just give them, so they'll just show that the co-cabinet change is already having his meeting. We can continue before, yeah, please, share to each one of them, and then we can take our pictures. Okay, please. The EKO, this is the first outing of the EKO cabinet change, and so we're using this medium to present the exchange to the world, to say that we support net zero emissions going 2030, 2050, and that we are going to be using projects and engaging networks and engaging partnerships to ensure that for us in Africa, we do what we ought to do. Yes. Please, let's appreciate this initiative. Can we clap for EKO Cabinet? So we're going to also bring Veronica up to continue the conversation. Monica, yes, please join in. Now, I was going to talk to my colleague here. Ayo Ademulua is an energy investor. So talking about infrastructure, a lot has been said about finance. We know that infrastructure is also a very strategic bottleneck in enabling us to achieve what we want to achieve in carbon emissions, especially with respect to solid wastes and transport. He just talked about taking up the blue economy, even in the transportation, and all of that. So let's have your opening comments, please.
Thanks so much once again for the opportunity. My name is Ayo Ademilua, and I'm the CEO for A4T. A4T is into mitigation projects through renewable energy projects. So we do photovoltaics projects, we do biogas, and such kind of mitigation projects. We're happy to partner with EKO Carbon Exchange because we've seen the kind of issues we have in Africa, and we've seen the fact that if we don't have a privately led exchange, having a handshake with government, we will not be able to deal with those issues. Like Dr. Hito said, it's a whole lot of trouble getting financing for mitigation projects, because most of the time the financiers always ask for some of the things that the entrepreneurs cannot provide, and at the end of the day you don't get the projects done. For our organization, we're very privileged to have been able to do some things in the space, and because we're also project developers through mini-grid solar home systems and biodigesters. We're currently one of the 6 winners of the World Bank grants in Nigeria. World Bank is currently doing a project in Nigeria called Nigeria Electrification Project, and the project it's a $350 million project, and it's going on for 4 years. Now, with that project, what we're having right now is we're having mitigation projects through solar home systems, through mini grids, and all the projects like that. And for us, we see that being part of this exchange and listing our projects on this exchange can help recreate finance for sustainability over time. We see carbon emission trading from the project as helping to unlock more financing for the objectives of the country, most especially towards contribution towards the NDC, for the countries. We're all counting down. I know that right now Nigeria is looking at having 30% of the power generated to come from renewables. So we're trying to target all our mitigation projects towards achieving those objectives that the nation has committed to in the Paris Agreement. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ayo. We come to the real issue of policy, and we're happy to have federal government represented on this panel because policy is very key, and especially at the national level, given that they are the key driver, the main driver of this in the national context. And so I'm going to ask Inaja, and it's on her table really, and we're very happy we didn't go for the minister, we went for her. So okay, so Aja, please, how is the federal government, your ministry, aiming to drive things relating to emission trading, emission mitigation through trading, adaptation and mitigation, all manner of stuff? Yeah, because I know you've been in it for quite some time, and I could see a lot of things going on around the country.
Thank you, and good morning all. So at the Federal Ministry of Environment, we are the UNFCCC focal point, and our mandate is to carry out the mandate of the UNFCCC, that is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So in doing that, we have, with the Paris Agreement, now we have our NDCs. We do a lot of stuff. Like we are also the designated national authority for the CDM. Nigeria has registered 19 CDM projects. CDM is the Clean Development Mechanism. And Africa actually lost out in the CDM. We did not do a lot of projects or any significant, we didn't have any significant number of projects in Africa. But in West Africa, Nigeria has the largest number of projects, which are only 19, but at least we have those projects which cover the oil and gas sector, the water sector, energy efficiency, and all of that. So because of what I said, that Africa lost out in the CDM projects, in the CDM generally, yes. So we, the negotiators of the West African countries, came together to form an alliance called the West African Alliance on Carbon Markets and Climate Finance. So Nigeria is a member, and what we're doing there is to get ready for the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which is a similar mechanism to the CDM, so that once the Paris Agreement starts, we hit the ground running. So Nigeria got benefited from support from the alliance. It's a readiness support on Article 6. So we had some meetings in the capital, the FCT, with the public sector to find out what we can do about this new mechanism. And then we went ahead to go to Lagos to have a meeting with the private sector, because most of them are in the south doing the oil and gas and other projects, so that they will be aware of the Article 6 and how they can also benefit from this mechanism. And then we're talking about having a registry, CDM, or when Article 6 starts, a registry on the emission reductions, and we're working with EKO Capital, Dr. Itwa here, to have that registry. Also, we have talked with the World Bank on that, and then the UNFCCC, the International Transaction Log, also is supporting us to have a registry, not to fund the registry, but on how to operationalize the registry. We also have we have also developed a national action plan to reduce short-lived climate pollutants under the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, which is an initiative of UNEP. So in that, we also have 22 measures to mitigate these short-lived climate pollutants. And these measures cut across about 8 sectors, in which transport, waste, industries, HFCs, energy efficiency, and about 8 sectors. So we have that. It has been approved by the Federal Executive Council, so we're on the implementation phase. Then our NDCs also cover the oil and gas, transportation, energy, power, and agriculture. And then we're trying to review the NDCs in 2020, and we're going to include the waste sector and the water sector. Yes, so.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, Nigeria is a very big country with clearly close to 200 million people. And so when we have government that is actually doing so much, it looks like, you know, nothing is happening. But can you imagine? So we appreciate the partnership with the federal ministry, which we're going to be consummating. We had a conversation on this yesterday. Veronica, you've heard what is coming on Africa, and you have initiatives going on in Africa, according to Daniel, your team. But issue of capacity is key. Okay, how are you managing, you know, enabling initiatives in Africa to scale up the capacity? Because we've noted that since the Paris Agreement, even before then, China had built up capacity. And all the products, all the outputs coming out of that capacity, Africa is the consuming end. So we need really to manage them to some point. What do you consider should be the measures to do?
Well, we just started with a project in South Africa, which is the cooling as a service. So basically what we're doing is, you know what Xerox has done with the copy machine? So basically you purchase, you don't pay for the copy machine, they put it in your office and you just pay for the copy, right? So we're kind of doing that with the cooling system. So basically the technology provider puts air conditioning in the buildings, and you just pay for the air of cooling, right? And then the technology provider maintains it, pays for the electricity bills, and you just pay this fixed rate amount, right? So the technology provider has incentive of giving you the most efficient technology that it has. and the consumer as well has the incentive of like consuming less when it's not needed, because they're gonna pay less otherwise. So, and we work with different technology providers. So far we have South Africa and then Orion's projects in Ghana and Senegal. And now we're trying to push one in Nigeria. So probably next year we start working with Nigeria. But so far it's South Africa and Orion's projects.
To Nigeria, and so we're already harvesting a partnership that's going to enable capacity building within our economy. Dr. Itua, I'll come back to you. When the incentives that the ministry is already creating by reason of the projects that are activating across, what do you think should be the role of the business sector to really meet government at the border so that this can go more seamlessly?
It is recognized that the private sector seems to be the engine room to activate a number of the ideas that are being mooted here and there. Budgetary allocational provisions certainly are not enough. Innovation, articulating ideas and taking them to fruition in terms of implementation. The business sector is more attuned to that. Yes, the government should be able to create the enabling environment, as we will call it, enabling environment. But it falls within the jurisdiction of the business to ensure that all of this are implemented. But then, have we been able to articulate all this? Are we seeing the business case in all of this as those in the private sector? Can we speak the language or put them in a manner that the business case can be brought out in all of this? I think the government needs to do more for the private sector. But I'll tell you that in terms of innovation, in terms of research, in terms of bringing all of these ideas to fruition, certainly it falls within the jurisdiction of the private sector to do this. And so we will encourage the private sector to actually take on this and get it done. The government on its own, of course, we talk here and there. We also want the government to create that space. It's not sufficient for us to articulate ideas at that governmental level or the policy level. Take note, for instance, we talked about the SMEs dominating the Nigerian economic space. The question is, those SMEs, how enabled are they? Recall earlier, one of our colleagues talked about de-risking projects. There is no one SME that will go to the financial institutions and they won't tell you need to de-risk your project. And also with the policies that we have in place, that seems to short-live the tenor of support that the banks for it, the financial institutions can give to such projects. Take note, a number of these projects will take a long time to mature and indeed pay back. So in other words, we'll be looking at project financing. But not so many of them are attuned to that. What they're interested in is asking you, when are you returning my money? Where is your collateral? And so on and so forth. The SMEs, the startups, they don't have all of that. So in other words, the landscape should be opened up for the private sector in that space, the SME space, to do a lot. Take note, the tiny bit that all the SMEs will do might be in position to take just what one big one can do. If it is so, can we encourage all of them? Yes. If you actually check in the real sense of it, I will tell you that within the economic space of Nigeria, we will tell you that we have at least 90% of the SMEs, not just SMEs, micro or mini SMEs. who do not even have money in terms of capital to actually start their projects. So if we have such, can we have incentives? Can we have encouragement? Can we have policies that will ensure that these SMEs are able to start their business? Take note, I mentioned that looking at the tenor, an average institution, the banks will not want to support more than five years. Granted that a number of them are venturing into that space now, but then they are still apprehensive. They still want you to do the risk. Not too long ago, there was this idea of climate finance accelerator in trying to build SMEs in a manner that their projects are fundable or bankable. But unfortunately, even still with that, what we heard was that none of them scaled through because they needed to de-risk their proposals or their projects. So in other words, for the private sector to really play their own role in this, they need the support of the government.
Okay, thank you very much. A lot of things are coming out in this. They actually are obvious from the start because African economies are really not as strong as to take on or absorb, capacities that are required to scale up. And that is why we're having this partnership, we're having this kind of conversations. And what comes out is the fact that SMEs, Nigeria, for instance, are close to 90% of businesses as SMEs. So they need to be helped. Beyond policy incentives, education is critical. Who is enabling them to get to understand that this is at their own interest, is in their own interest to be sustainable, apart from always looking at the finance. I don't know how in your businesses, whether you have come across similar investments or businesses, SMEs, who are naive to the extent of what benefits accrue when you go sustainable.
Like I said from the start, we need to first start with awareness and education. It's unlike the Europe and other parts of the world where people already understand some of the things that the sustainability can bring. So we expect that the government and players and stakeholders will push awareness a lot about sustainability. Then, like what Dr. Hitwa said about financing, coming from a developer side, project side, private side, the truth is that the banks in our country do not really understand as at now, what this sustainability project, the gains, the benefits and everything is. So there's also a need for awareness in the side of the finance. Now, for SMEs in Nigeria, of course, they do not know, they don't understand the advantages, and they have not benefited at all from sustainability advantages. They want to try to do projects that will either mitigate or help in adaptation, but it's not easy to get the finance. And I like his first word when he spoke about innovation. We have to find a way to innovate. In terms of models, business models, strategies, we need to start innovating, new ideas that will help the SMEs to be able to get financing, for projects that are working for mitigations and adaptations in a way that is different from the conventional idea. I like Radio's company, what they're doing in terms of, helping for financing in a non-conventional way. De-risking is the major word. Once we're able to get a good partnership that can help with de-risking, it takes out the request for security collateral and so many other questions, and it can help a lot to scale the business of sustainability in Nigeria. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I need to zero in on the carbon trade. It's something extremely new in our climate. You will agree with me. And I want to understand how national policy is going to be enabling this to happen. I can assure you that Lagos State is gearing to it. Lagos State is excited that this is coming. Not necessarily for the purpose of making more businesses of the law, but essentially of ensuring that businesses also end in the process. While you clean up, you end. How are we going to be interfacing with the federal ministry on this with respect to policy issues, man?
Thank you. So, being the UNFCCC focal point, of course, we have access to all the carbon, the carbon market and all. It's the carbon, all the carbon issues that are in the UNFCCC, where we are, like I said before, we are the DNA. So these projects, people are not really aware of the CDM or the Article 6 that is coming up in the Paris Agreement. But that was why I said that we have tried to reach out to the private sector. I tried to locate those proponents that, or the project owners from the CDM, and then those that I could locate, those I could contact, I asked them to look for other proponents, just to raise this awareness that this is happening. We have the CDM, which is in the Kyoto Protocol, which will end in 2020, and then the Paris Agreement that will start in 2020. So we are trying now to have though we have an existing framework for the CDM, but of course with Article 6 there will be some some adjustments that we need to do. So we have that on ground, and we would want, like in this forum now, I just found out about you people not too long ago. You're doing your thing and we're doing our own thing, but we need to work and harmonize all these things. So in doing that, we try to reach out to all the 36 states in Nigeria, and we now have climate change desk offices in all the 36 states in Nigeria, so that we can also know what the states are doing, and they can also know what we're doing, and then with that we can harmonize and then report our NDCs. So like Dr. Itwan said about the sovereign green bonds, we're doing the sovereign green bonds to finance our NDCs, and then we have done the first green bonds we launched was like about 10.6 billion naira, and we looked at 3 sectors: energy, which we have launched a solar farm or unit in Kano. In the universities, we're looking at the universities. There's one in Kano and one in the southern part of Nigeria. Yes. So we also have an interministerial committee on climate change, in which we are working with the MDAs in Nigeria. That's the ministries, departments, and agencies that are the technical ministries, ministries of transport, ministry of industry, oil and gas, agriculture, and many of them. So we are also working with the NGOs, the media, the academia, all on so that we can all see how we can work on this climate change issues in Nigeria.
Yes. Thank you very much. I need to, harvest views and questions from the audience for our panel. I hope you allow me to do that so that you can actually work together. Yes, please. Yes, so let's have questions for the panel.
Thank you very much. My name is Dr. Agba Antonia. I'm Director of Road Transport, Mass Transit Administration in the Federal Ministry of Transportation. I want to thank EKO Carbon Exchange and in fact Ministry of Environment, our colleagues, and all those who have put this side event here, because we are looking for a platform like this to discuss the issues of vehicular emissions. All right, now what I'm concerned about, and I don't think this is really the platform, but I think I have to trigger this so that as we go back to Nigeria, we can sit together and brainstorm and have direction. Lagos State, we have invited you, my department, my minister has invited Lagos State. We didn't know about carbon exchange, and I want to blame environment, but environment too have just found them. So I pull back my blame, and I embrace them with them. I blame you for going ahead to work this hard, and yet the critical stakeholders, because you have to segment your stakeholders and look out for them. The ministry has been given, my colleague has said that the Federal Executive Council has approved 22 measures. Transport has 5. And transport is struggling to locate the key stakeholders, and has written to Lagos State twice to attend meetings. And one of the measures, measure 1, is that you have to remove all the motorways, and that you have to replace them with 800 buses that are green transport, pro-green transport. And I know you have done something on that, yet you have not communicated. And is it that you don't know that there's such a policy by the Federal Executive Council? That's one. And then secondly, the road transport operators, Lubon, Luxurious Bus Owners of Nigeria, National Union of Road Transport Operators, NATO, Return, Comoran, there's so many of them. They don't even know what we're talking about. And they're leaving the country and going across the border and buying second-hand vehicles. And yet we are battling to reduce the content of this, the gaseous content of these vehicles. So what we are saying, sincerely, we just have to go back home. And I want to hold you, EKO Carbon Exchange. I will hold you. I won't let you go until you come to us. My ministers, the two of them, especially very passionately, the Minister of State, Bemisola Saraki, is up and out to help us achieve the targets that have been given to us by the Federal Executive Council. So please, I'm offering ourselves to you, and I'm saying environment, we will talk when we get back home. There are so many stakeholders who can fund themselves to be here. There are so many stakeholders who need to know what is going on. The high-level meetings and all of that, there are people that should be there for each of the respective contents to determine and pull out what to go back home with, to do what to do. Environment cannot speak for everyone. Neither can you speak for all the states. There are 36 states and FCT. And all these states are supposed to sit with Lagos, and Lagos is the champion, is the lead. So Lagos, you just have to come and look for all your stakeholders. They are waiting for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, let's appreciate our comment. Essentially, first to say that EKO. Okay, more questions, please. Questions will be fine.
Thank you very much. My question is in terms of how Lagos State is partnering with universities. If we're going to reduce emissions, and we know students take public transportation, can we introduce a cycling project where it could be SMEs that could organize that, and you could lend bicycles or buy it at really, really reduced prices, That's what's happening at the university where I study just now, and I think that that works. Also, someone had said that we phased out Molues, and then we have BRTs now. Are they energy efficient? And then what's the real status on the 800 buses that are operating in Lagos just now? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Joseph Blay. I'm from Ghana. So Nigeria is our big sister. And actually talking about Nigeria, talking about Ghana, Kenya, the problem is always the same. Now, I'm very happy and grateful to the presentations, especially the first one, those who have left. He mentioned something that if we consider the amount of creation and production that is going on, every day we are building one New York City. And so what we need is really a change of lifestyle. And that is so important because what we are presenting is very good, it's an alternative, but at the end is creating market. Yeah, when I listened, especially the second one with the beard who left, trying to create market, and then you open market up for Africa, they are producing. So it's like we are trying to treat the symptoms, and we have to treat the cause. What is the cause of the carbon emission, especially on the traffic side? When I look at it, as I said, whether Ghana or Nigeria or Kenya, some of the African countries that I've been to, our problem here is policy. So unless we come out with policies, somebody was mentioning about buying second-hand cars. So if we don't come out with policies, we can bring out all these inventions, all these new markets, which at the end will create market for Europe and then the developed world. And we will continue to still be poor and poor because we are not even reaching the point of inventing and creating things to solve our own problems. We are always counting on them. So here, the problem I'm talking about with the policy, when we talk about policy, all African countries, at least 90%, have a great monster. And that monster is called Mr. or Mrs. Corruption. So when we sit before this monster, now you coming out with this great, beautiful idea as a very small gnat or fly, how do you feel and how are you going to prepare to confront this monster of corruption, which is everywhere? Because with the corruption, look at the road you showed from Nigeria, the same in Ghana. It's a matter of policy. Europeans have done it. Now here, carbon emission is 0.001. They made a policy, they are obeying it. I went to when you go to the underground, the metro, I just tell myself, if Ghana, this happened to be in Ghana, we will all die of carbon emission. Because the cars are not moving, or even under the tunnels, the emission that will come, you will die inside there. Yes, so the policies here are working. In Africa, anyway, they are not working because of corruption. So this is your beautiful idea. How are you prepared to confront the monster corruption? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Habiba Dagash, a doctorate student at Imperial College London, and I have two questions. So the first is, you mentioned an interministerial committee on climate change issues, but how is the ministry engaging with the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank to address broader economic policy issues such as tariffs, such as a bad foreign exchange regime, to ensure that an enabling environment for investment or for importation of solar panels, for example, is created in Nigeria? And my second question is on the AFMU sector. So we've talked about energy, we've talked about transport, but the bulk of Nigeria's emissions, almost 65%, come from land use and land use change. So that is really the critical sector where you should be realizing mitigation or adaptation projects. So what is EKO Carbon Exchange as a company doing, or more broadly the Ministry of Environment doing to mitigate land use emissions in Nigeria?
Let's have a feedback. Want to take on? Okay, let's go. Go ahead.
I'm David Adeshina from Ondo State, Nigeria. I'd like to bring to fore that Ondo State is using forestry as a potent medium to combat emissions. And we have started this since 2015. And we are not alone in this program. My colleague is also here from Nasarawa State under the program of Red Plus. And a lot of things have been done there, but there is no platform to integrate. As the last speaker has just said, a great deal of emission arise from land use, land change, even more than transport sector. So there is a need in Nigeria, in Lagos, Southwest, everywhere, to come to the same platform. If Lagos is doing a carbon exchange via transport, Ondo is doing carbon exchange via forestry, same thing, Nasarawa State, everything is still carbon. We must synergize. My sister said something that there is climate change debt in all the 30 states. Yes, fine. But our experience in those states is a parallel one. For me, as the coordinator of Red Plus in those states, I do not know the person in charge of that climate debt, but I know it exists. It's in the Ministry of Environment. We are in the Ministry of Natural Resources. And so there is a need to broaden synergy so that at the end of the day, so we will now gain as a nation and as a geopolitical zone. So like I said, two of us are here. The Nasarawa State Red Plus coordinators is also here, and we are in tandem with the Federal Ministry of Environment to combat emission emanating from forestry. Thank you very much.
Good day, panelists. My name is Erewakede Davidson, Minister of Environment, Bayelsa State of Nigeria. I am just interested in one comment you made. You said you are trying to open, the federal government of Nigeria is trying to open a registry. I had something like that. Please, can you elucidate on the functions of that registry and how we stand to benefit from that registry? Thank you.
Hello, Judy Soul from Cape Town Television and also from Mother Channel Internet Television. My question to you is the same as we have in South Africa. It's one thing to get money to do projects, but we also have the same problem as you do with corruption. So much of you waste a lot of time trying to get funding. When you get the funding, it hardly ever ends up going anywhere towards the simple things that we need to do to save ourselves. So are we going to, as nations, say to ourselves, we can't actually save ourselves because the money never gets to what's meant to happen? When you think that renewable energy and storing it is a fairly simple thing to do, circularizing your water through wetlands is something that just takes a lot of people to just dig. It's not they're not big, and it's feeding ourselves from agriculture that is organic. All of these things would give us energy security, water security, and food security, and also to limit our impact on the environment. So don't you think it's getting to be time where we need to actually say, even if we don't get the money, for goodness sake, let's do what we have to do with our population's earnest efforts to try and save ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
Thank you very much. I will just make a brief remark on some of the statements and then give to my colleagues to also say something. I will start with the director from the Ministry of Transportation. Interestingly, in this very IATA hall, your minister was there and we sat beside each other. That was on Friday also. Yes, I think that was on Friday. Friday or Thursday. Yeah, the bottom line is that yes, there is need for both the national and the subnational government to work together. You cannot do your things in silos. It will not help our nation, not in any way. You do not have any territory to protect. We have our own territory together, collectively to protect. If we look at it from that angle, we will work together as a people. And so, you have already said you want us to engage. Certainly, we will engage. If I have to support in getting across to the Commissioner for Transport in Lagos, yes, I can do that. Somebody talked about Molwe. The market forces itself has checked out Molwe. We no longer have Molwes in Lagos. So, the kind of emission we were getting from Molwe is out of it. You know, we are talking about prevention or avoidance. And so, we have been able to do that in Lagos. Somebody talked about the BRT buses. I know in terms of emission, we need to. There was this idea that was coming up to set up a vehicle emission regulation for Lagos. But I do know that at the national level, something is being done by NESRA to do a vehicle emission monitoring. Stations have been set up, and I'm aware that very soon they'll be launched. Interestingly, my organization, my private organization, is part of that is coming up with to support NESRA in getting that done. I don't want to talk about corruption. Corruption runs riots everywhere in the world. The difference is that those in Africa make the loudest noise about their own corruption. And that is the simple statement about it. But for morality, for doing what is right and what is appropriate, all of us need to change our mindset. What am I talking about? That we should agree not to be corrupt in whatever way. If we do that, we should be able to benefit our people. But unfortunately, again, when people decide to fight for their own private territory, and then others can go to blazes, that is where we're having these challenges. That is where the corruption continues to gain popularity. And so if we try as much as possible to see how, whatever all of us can do to ensure that we are not corrupt, we do not support corruption, in whatever way, I think we will have a headway in that. Yes, for Afolu, I'm aware that it's already part of, she talks about agriculture, and all of that comes under agriculture. Of course, we know part of the land use is also in terms of development, Ministry of Infrastructure and Urban Development. We also know that that is also a way that we have been utilizing our land. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the registry that the federal government is proposing will be in position to stock, to trade. When eventually we talked about ITMOS, when eventually, if this club were able to agree that yes, Article 6, we have the guidebook to work with, I think the kind of registry that's been that the federal government is proposing will be able to trade. But besides warehousing, we should be able to sell, and indeed, the carbon exchange for the nation, within the nation itself, should be able to hold sway eventually.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have 4 minutes to leave this conversation because another group is going to take over this place. So please, one minute in response and then in making your conclusions, please.
Okay, I just want to speak about the project the lady spoke about in terms of plastics. I think EKO Carbon Exchange should try to adopt that project, for Nigeria, for the universities. Thank you.
So most of the questions, Dr. Iswan has answered it, but on the Federal Ministry of Finance, they're also part of our Interministerial Committee on Climate Change. So if we need to talk on subsidizing some of this, maybe renewable energy products or anything, they're part of our climate change committee, so it's very easy to do that. So, but we haven't gotten any proposal or anything that they want to bring some things. If any project proponent wants, they can write to us and tell us that this is what they want, and of course we can take it up with the Ministry of Finance to see how these taxes can be removed or reduced, anyone. So Dr. Iswa has talked about the land use and the registry, and then on the states, on those states, well, I don't know, you don't know your climate change desk officer? So that's why we're working with these states, so that we're expecting them. It's pretty new what we're doing with them, but of course we're going to tell them or train them on how to reach out to other offices. We have the person that spoke from Bayelsa is the desk officer from Bayelsa, just for you to know that yes, we have these desk officers. But of course, as time goes on, they will reach out to all this, because we can, from the federal, reach out to this, go deep into that. But once we have those desk officers, they will be able to do all of that, and then we'll have all this records and information and data. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Veronica, in closing, maybe 1 minute, you want to say something that, yeah?
Yeah, just thank you for inviting me. And it was very interesting talking about SMEs. Like, I hear the same concerns that like we face in some projects that we do with SMEs in Latin America and in Europe. Like the upfront cost is too high, they don't want to take the risk. So it was very interesting. Maybe we can talk about it later as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to appreciate everyone that have been here to join us in this conversation, and particularly for our panel, sharing a lot of knowledge, and we're ready to share the knowledge with us. Please, can we appreciate our panel? Please. Yeah, and for all of you, I want to really, I feel indebted that you will here to support this conversation. But most important thing really is going forward, that we carry the partnership we are creating from here, between the public and the non-state actors, and especially bringing projects to the carbon exchange. We're creating this first as a prime platform for West Africa, going through Africa. And of course, we expect that projects across the world will find value to offset emissions before we get to 2050. In the process, we are going to be able to achieve the SDG goals. Thank you very much for coming. We have some entertainment somewhere there. Please, but we're going to pass. Yeah, we're going to be passing like that. Okay. Yeah, please. We'll pass like that to have our entertainment. But please, let's have a picture with our panel. Just a picture with our panel. Thank you very much. Thank you.